Hey everybody, welcome to another thought-provoking episode. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into the murky waters of international terrorism, a topic that's as complex as it is controversial. Buckle up because we're about to unpack some seriously heavy stuff with the help of none other than the legendary Noam Chomsky and his classic book, Pirates and Emperors, Old and New, International Terrorism in the Real World. This book has been a cornerstone in understanding the intricate dynamics of power and violence on a global scale. Now, when we hear the word terrorism, our minds often jump to images of shadowy figures and extremist groups. These are the faces that dominate our news cycles and shape our perceptions. But Chomsky wants us to pump the brakes on those knee-jerk reactions and take a long, hard look at something most of us tend to ignore: state-sponsored violence. This is where the real conversation begins. He argues that we live in a world of double standards, where horrific acts committed by powerful nations are often brushed under the rug, while similar actions by smaller groups or individuals are branded as terrorism. This double standard is not just a minor oversight, it's a fundamental flaw in how we understand global politics. Chomsky's book is a blistering critique of this hypocrisy. He meticulously dissects the narratives that powerful states use to justify their actions. He doesn't let anyone off the hook, shining a light on the uncomfortable truth that powerful states often engage in acts of violence that are eerily similar to those they condemn in others. This is a wake-up call for all of us. It's time to face some uncomfortable truths, folks, and Chomsky is the perfect guide for this eye-opening journey. His insights compel us to question the status quo and rethink our understanding of terrorism. This ain't gonna be your average episode, folks. We're peeling back the layers and diving deep into the heart of these issues. We're talking about challenging the narratives we've been fed and holding those in power accountable. It's about time we start asking the tough questions. You ready? Let's do this. Let's embark on this journey together and uncover the truths that lie beneath the surface. So, what's the deal with this whole pirates and emperors thing? It's a fascinating analogy that really makes you think about the nature of power and violence. Chomsky uses this clever analogy to highlight the stark contrast in how we perceive acts of violence depending on who's committing them. It's a way to challenge our preconceived notions and biases. Think of it this way. Pirates are like those small-scale terrorist groups or individuals we often hear about in the news. They're the ones who make headlines with their shocking acts. They're the ones who hijack planes, set off bombs, and generally wreak havoc on a smaller scale. Their actions are visible and immediate, grabbing our attention. Emperors, on the other hand, are the big players, the powerful states like the United States. They operate on a much larger scale, often under the guise of national interest or security. They have armies, navies, and enough firepower to level entire cities. Their actions can be devastating, affecting millions of lives. Here's the kicker. Chomsky argues that both pirates and emperors engage in violence and terrorism. The difference lies in the scale and the perception of their actions. But guess what? The emperors are way better at getting away with it. They have the means to justify their actions through political rhetoric and media control. They have the resources, the influence, and most importantly, the control over the narrative to justify their actions. This allows them to shape public perception and avoid accountability. Chomsky's point is that we've been conditioned to focus on the pirates while conveniently ignoring the atrocities committed by the emperors. It's a deliberate distraction. It's like we're so busy swatting at mosquitoes that we don't even notice the elephant in the room, the one who's been trashing the place. This analogy forces us to rethink who the real threats are. Now let's talk about the media, shall we? Chomsky argues that the media plays a crucial role in perpetuating this skewed perception of terrorism. He calls it manufacturing consent. Basically, the media, whether intentionally or not, often presents information in a way that serves the interests of powerful states. Think about it. When a pirate commits an act of violence, it's plastered all over the news. We hear about the victims, the motives, and the global outrage. But when an emperor does something similar, well, it's either downplayed, justified as a necessary evil, or simply ignored altogether. The media often uses different language to describe similar acts of violence depending on who's responsible. A bombing by a pirate is an act of terrorism, while a bombing by an emperor is a targeted strike or collateral damage. This selective reporting creates a dangerous double standard. It allows powerful states to get away with murder, literally, while demonizing their enemies and justifying their own, often brutal actions. Chomsky backs up his claims with some pretty compelling historical case studies. One of the most striking examples is the Vietnam War. Now I know what you're thinking. John, the Vietnam War was a cluster *CP, but was it really state-sponsored terrorism? Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because things are about to get real. The United States intervened in Vietnam to supposedly stop the spread of communism, but what actually went down was a brutal campaign of violence against the Vietnamese people. We're talking carpet bombing, napalm strikes, and the use of Agent Orange, a chemical weapon that had devastating long-term effects on the environment and human health. The point Chomsky makes is this: the US government justified these actions as necessary to protect freedom and democracy. But in reality, they were acts of state-sponsored terror that resulted in the deaths of millions of innocent civilians. Section 5. Nicaragua, when freedom fighters are actually terrorists. Another chilling example Chomsky uses is the US involvement in Nicaragua in the 1980s. The Reagan administration supported a group of rebels known as the Contras in their fight against the socialist Sandinista government. Now, the Contras were portrayed in the US media as freedom fighters trying to liberate their country from a communist dictatorship. But the reality was far more sinister. The Contras were responsible for widespread human rights abuses, including torture, murder, and the targeting of civilians. The US government knew about these atrocities, but they turned a blind eye because the Contras were serving their interests. They even secretly funded the Contras by selling arms to Iran, a move that became known as the Iran-Contra scandal. This whole episode is a textbook example of how a powerful state can support terrorism while claiming to be fighting against it. Section 6. The uncomfortable truth, recognizing our own hypocrisy. Look, I get it. It's not easy to stomach this kind of stuff. It's much easier to think of terrorism as something that only bad guys do, not our own governments. But here's the thing. If we truly want to understand and combat terrorism, we need to be honest with ourselves about the role our own governments play in perpetuating violence around the world. Chomsky's work is a wake-up call. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the line between good guys and bad guys is often blurry, and that those in power are often the ones who draw that line in the first place. It's easy to point fingers at terrorists and demand justice. But what about the injustices committed by our own governments? Shouldn't we be holding them accountable too? Section 7. Relevance in the 21st century, from the Cold War to the War on Terror. Now you might be thinking, John, this is all very interesting, but Chomsky's book was published in the 1980s. How can something written so long ago still hold any significance in our modern world? Is it really still relevant today? Can the insights from decades ago still apply to our current global landscape? Oh, you bet your sweet bippy it is. The principles and observations Chomsky made are timeless. Chomsky's analysis of state-sponsored terrorism is just as relevant in the 21st century as it was during the Cold War. The tactics and strategies may have evolved, but the underlying motives remain strikingly similar. In fact, it's even more important in the wake of 9/11 and the so-called War on Terror. The events of that fateful day reshaped global politics and security policies. Think about the US-led invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. These were monumental decisions that changed the course of history. These wars were launched in the name of fighting terrorism. But what were the real outcomes? They resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians, destabilized entire regions, and created power vacuums that allowed groups like ISIS to thrive. The human cost has been staggering. The War on Terror, much like the Cold War before it, has become a convenient excuse for powerful states to intervene militarily in other countries, often with disastrous consequences. The parallels are undeniable. And just like during the Cold War, the media plays a crucial role in selling these interventions to the public. The narrative is carefully crafted to gain public support. Section 8. Unmasking the propaganda. Why Chomsky matters today. So why does any of this matter? Why should we care about what some old dude wrote decades ago? Well, because understanding Chomsky's critique of state-sponsored terrorism is crucial for becoming informed citizens. It helps us see through the propaganda and critically evaluate the information we're fed by the media and our governments. When we understand how power shapes the narrative, we're less likely to be manipulated by fear-mongering and jingoism. We're better equipped to demand accountability from our leaders and challenge them when they engage in actions that contradict their own rhetoric. Chomsky's work is a call to action. It's a reminder that we don't have to accept the status quo. We can challenge the narratives, hold the powerful accountable, and demand a more just and peaceful world. Section 9. Conclusion. Challenging narratives, demanding accountability. Look, I'll level with you. Reading Chomsky can be like getting hit with a truth brick, repeatedly. It's not always comfortable, but it's damn important. His work forces us to ask tough questions about power, violence, and the role our own governments play in perpetuating conflict around the world. So, the next time you hear about a terrorist attack, don't just reach for the nearest pitchfork. Take a step back and ask yourself, who benefits from this narrative? Who's being silenced? And what are we not being told? The world is a complex place and there are no easy answers. But by questioning the narratives we're fed and demanding accountability from those in power, we can start to create a world where pirates and emperors are held to the same standard. That's it for tonight, folks. Go forth and be skeptical.